Every day, your money is losing value to inflation. The solution is to put your money into investments that typically outgrow inflation, such as stocks or real estate. But that answer isn't good enough. You still need cash. You need money for your mortgage or rent. You need money for food and water. You need money for your Uber Eats order of delicious Mexican food that will make your bad day into a good one. In addition to your daily expenses, you also need an emergency fund to deal with emergencies. Personal emergencies are a lot like recessions. You never know when the crisis is coming, but you do know that one will eventually happen. The typical emergency fund is 3 to 6 months of your necessary living expenses. That's a lot of cash. So how can you have easy, reliable access to cash while also not getting completely destroyed by inflation? The solution is a high-yield savings account. Now you might be thinking, impossible. You lie. There's no such thing as a savings account with a good yield. Look at the yields offered by the premier financial institutions in America. Bank of America offers 0.01%. Chase offers 0.01%. Wells Fargo offers 0.15% per year. These are some of the largest banks in America, and they struggle to provide their clients with a high savings account interest rate. These terrible rates are offered because these scummy corporate banks are screwing over their clients every single day. You do not have to be one of their victims. There are tons of fantastic alternatives to the standard corporate bank. In my case, I use Ally as my bank. Right now, my savings account interest rate is 3.75%. Now that's a fantastic savings account interest rate, at least at the time of posting this video. High yield savings accounts interest rates do fluctuate, which I'll be discussing a little later in the video. But first, we need to discuss Ally a little more because their high yield savings account isn't the full story. Ally also has no monthly account maintenance fees and no minimum opening deposit. Any ATM withdrawal fees I run into are reimbursed up to $10 a month. Ally doesn't even charge any overdraft fees, while also offering free coverage if you do overdraft your account up to $250. Ally isn't just a bank with a high yield savings account. Ally is the kind of bank you want to be doing business with. Now, as you might be expecting, there is a catch. Ally is an online-only bank, but these days, most people don't need a physical bank. I get cash from any ATM I want and get those fees reimbursed. I deposit checks with my phone. If I run into a problem, Ally has a reputable 24/7 call center ready to go. Now, Ally isn't the only incredible bank out there. There are tons of fantastic online-only banks offering great services, all thanks to competition. Online banking competition is brutal since there aren't any limitations for clients when they pick an online bank. This competition means that online banks must offer great savings accounts rates, lower fees, and better customer service in order to stay relevant. Now, if you don't want to use an online bank, you aren't stuck with trash like Bank of America and Wells Fargo. You should look into your local credit unions. Credit unions are basically non-profit banks that are owned by their clients. While the major US banks try to make as much money for their shareholders as possible, credit unions just want to serve you. But even as a nonprofit, you should not expect a credit union savings account rate to be higher than that of an online bank. Local credit unions do have to cover the additional cost of running a physical location. Now, before I discuss what to look for in a bank, let's discuss some issues with high-yield savings accounts. First, sometimes savings accounts have a limited number of monthly withdrawals. This historically was because of a Federal Reserve regulation called Regulation D. But due to COVID-19, the Federal Reserve no longer requires a withdrawal limit for savings accounts. However, some banks still have withdrawal limits anyways. For example, Ally allows 6 withdrawals a month from a savings account. This isn't a problem for me since my only withdrawals each month are my rent, paying off my credit card in full, and a stubborn bill that refuses to go on the credit card. If you want to use your savings account for all your monetary transactions, make sure your savings account doesn't have a withdrawal limit or you stay within the limits. Another concern with high-yield savings accounts is that you might not have access to one. Perhaps you need a physical bank and even your local credit union is offering a terrible savings account rate. For daily transactions, you might be stuck using a low-interest bank account. However, for your emergency fund, you should consider a money market fund at a brokerage. This is a conservative investment that produces interest that is often equal or a bit higher than that of a high-yield savings account. Many brokerages will also offer a checkbook that withdraws directly from the money market fund. The last issue I want to discuss is that the high-yield savings account's interest rates are not stable. The interest rate fluctuates for 2 reasons. The first is competition. Every single month, tons of articles are published comparing different high-yield savings accounts. One way to stand out in these articles is by offering the highest interest rate. The second and most important reason the interest rate for high-yield savings accounts changes is due to the Federal Reserve. When you deposit money in the bank lends out your money and gives you a cut of what they make. That cut is the interest rate of your savings account. When interest rates are higher, the bank can give you a bigger cut since there's more money to split. Recently, the Federal Reserve has been increasing interest rates to combat inflation. Every time there's an interest rate increase, I get an email from Ally telling me that my savings account rate is going higher. Looking into the future, when the next recession hits and the Federal Reserve stimulates the economy by cutting interest rates, I expect my savings account's interest rate will fall. The Federal Reserve will increase interest rates for all kinds of reasons, not just to combat inflation. That means there are times where a high-yield savings account can keep up with inflation. Right now is not one of those times. Inflation is at 5%, and my savings account is at 3.75%. While the dollar amount in my savings account is increasing, the prices of goods and services are increasing even faster. I'm losing 1.25% of purchasing power every year. But back in October 2019, inflation was at 1.8%, and Ally was offering 1.9% for their savings account interest rate. While high-yield savings accounts can't always beat inflation, they can sometimes win. Now let's talk about some considerations you should have when picking a new bank. One consideration is how much money are you getting from the bank. Picking your bank by selecting the savings account with the highest interest rate is a terrible mistake. Some banks will lure clients in with a very high interest rate or a sign-up bonus. Then the bank hits the new client with a ton of fees. For example, Citibank frequently contacts me and asks me to open a savings account with them. Their current savings account interest rate is 3.85%, which is 0.1% higher than Ally's interest rate. Also, Citi is offering a cash bonus up to $450 if I deposit enough money with them. However, they don't have the best reputation, so I expect there'll be tons of hidden fees. For example, their basic banking package charges me a fee if I withdraw money from an ATM outside of their network. That's an obnoxious fee, and I'm sure that isn't the only fee lurking. At first glance, Citi seems to be the better bank, but in practice, I suspect I'll make more money by sticking with Ally. This brings us to the most important consideration: good customer service. You will not make a lot of money off of the money in your bank account. Even Ally's current 3.75% pales in comparison to the average return of the S&P 500, which historically has been around 10%. Don't lose sight of the primary purpose of the money in your bank account. Its job is to cover your daily and emergency cash needs. Imagine your bank account gets accidentally frozen, has an issue, or even if you just lose your password. A good customer service team from a reputable bank means that this is an inconvenience. A bad customer service team from an unreputable bank could turn this minor issue into a financial disaster. You do not want to risk a financial disaster and a major headache because you chased the additional 0.1% interest rate from an unreputable bank. I hope by now you see the real reason for why you need a high-yield savings account. It's more than just fighting inflation or making your money work for you, though that is nice. It's about making sure you have the right financial institution holding your money, an institution that will help you find financial success instead of leeching off of you like Wells Fargo. I'm sure I'll do a deeper dive into specific online banks in the future, so if you want to see that or you found this video useful, I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe. I wish you nothing but the best with your journey towards financial success.